This is a relatively minor horror story, but one I was a third party in. I've had a single game with this DM, but it fizzled out uneventfully. One of my fellow players, let's call her Madison, was in this game and is the subject of this horror story, but via another game I was not involved in, which is the one I'll be referring to here. I do digital art as a hobby, nothing spectacular, but I take the occasional commission. The DM asked me out of nowhere one day to commission me to draw a prominent NPC he'd be using in a coming up session, and it was sort of a birthday present for one of his players. As he's describing this character to me, I was thinking, wow, this really sounds like a knockoff of this fictional character that Madison really loves. Which is how I would define every single D&D character I've ever seen in my life. Ain't no shame in it. Mine are like that too. Little did I know the motivation behind this. A week or so later, I'd provide the artwork. Madison DMs me asking why I agreed to do this art. She recognized it as mine and was upset. I told her the DM said this was a birthday gift for a player, and although I suspected it was for her, owing it to the, character resemblance, what I didn't know was that the DM has a long history of asking Madison out. Bro, it's like clockwork! Like incel clockwork! He sulks a lot, vaguely stalks her, goes borderline incel, repeat ad nauseum for a decade? Dude has been fiending for half my life. He created the NPC as some sort of twisted proxy for his own desires, and then blamed me for the creation of the character, which I was not. In the end, since this happened, a lot has come out about the DM and his covert manipulations around Madison over the years. Me and some friends / ex-roomies sat down, compared stories. Frankly, all that is the real horror, way more than the game. And I won't get into that tea, but this art was definitely the linchpin that set things into motion for revealing his true colors. DM was also not a particularly good DM either. Lazy, unmotivated, and played just the most boring strahd you can possibly imagine. And also, he never paid me for my art. Alright, I've heard enough. Turn around and face the wall. I look forward to the day we get to kick him to the curb. I don't know why you haven't done that yet. You probably should. This guy sounds really, really annoying. 10 years of fiending for someone who doesn't want you is diabolical nonsense. I'm just glad you and your friends are supporting Madison. Many lesser folks would just ignore this crap. I've been binge watching your D&D horror story videos to get me through some mind-numbing data entry at work this week, as it made work a lot more fun and enjoyable, so thank you for that. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully the story doesn't bring you too much psychic damage. It's not really a horror story, just a boss battle that could have gone a lot better, which everyone learns something from. But considering the circumstances that led to this combat, it will probably be a terrifying story for you specifically. What does that mean? You can't just like say that and not explain what you mean. What does that mean? What does that mean? So I'm part of a D&D group that is very unique, all things considered. Before joining, I knew only 2 players in the group, but have become close friends with everyone by now, including the dungeon masters. DMs plural because we have maybe 30-something players nowadays that show up every week, which is too much for any one DM to handle. So we have like 4 DMs for those 30-something people, but started with 20-something and 2 DMs. Guys, I thought 8 players was too much. 10 players. 30 players? The head DM who started the group wanted to make a group where anyone would be welcome to learn to play for the first time. So she didn't put any limit on the number of people when she first started advertising the game. And she did come to the very first session prepared for both too little players by making characters she could add to the party, or too many by bringing in a second DM to help. She's a bit of a madwoman for that, and I say that with all the affection in my heart because I don't think I could ever manage it. Not to mention the second DM can't stand having less than 10 players at his table, which is also insane to me. It's insane to me too, let me tell you! For my first time experiencing D&D, well, my actual first time was only 1 session that never continued due to scheduling issues, and I didn't learn squat, so I don't count that. This was a very interesting way to learn the game, but the DMs and several other players have been incredibly helpful in showing me the ropes, and I have had so much fun with this group, even if there are issues with our particular setup where we have to switch tables and groups every session, so we don't often get to have the same encounters with certain players very often, or with trying to make our quest last the same amount of time to keep everything consistent. But that's not the horror story I'm here to tell. We had one villain in the story that pretty much every character absolutely despised and wanted to be involved in the defeat of. One of our player character Artificer's creations, who went rogue and wanted to kill us all. I forget what it's called. I'm still very new to the story, but we'll call it Ultron, or Am, or Hal, or Skynet. This happens a lot, guys. I'm not gonna lie. The DMs didn't want to try to decide which half our group got to fight the big bad robot and which half of us had to do a different quest unrelated to defeating him, leaving everyone in that second group sorely disappointed. So they combined tables for that fight, with second DM running the combat and head DM joining in as the important NPC. And to make the combat a lot less of a slog, I put in a 1-minute timer, if I remember correctly, on everyone's turns, encouraging people to do their roles beforehand, just make it go faster. Boy, was that a mistake, and I'm sure you can already see many issues with the setup. First, finding a room with enough chairs and tables actually wasn't an issue. That's actually surprising. Based on the Million Lives Book Festival, tables and chairs are in short supply these days. Look, finding a way to set up said chairs and tables so that everyone can see and access the battle mat on the center table was one major issue. Another issue was that, obviously, despite the time limit, the combat was still incredibly boring for everyone except the Dungeon Master, who was trying to remember everything and hold it together through sheer determination. On top of that, one of our players in particular had a stutter that he really struggles with, and the time limit clearly stressed him out. Made worse by some of the other players constantly pointing out to him how little time he had left, making him stop mid-sentence to say, "I know," before trying to restart the sentence. He was struggling to say over and over again, and I felt bad for him the whole time. Luckily though, we made it through the fight. It was challenging enough to be fun, but not so hard as to be frustrating. It was a really incredible story moment for all of us, and it felt like an earned victory. But after that, the second DM as well as several of the other players, we agreed we are never doing that ever again. Look, I'm glad you had fun, but I still stand by my position that you should not be playing with this many people, especially if somebody near you has a verbal disability. Look, if I was that person who's trying to get through a sentence and I have other people constantly reminding me of a time limit, that would really irritate me. I do think it's reasonable to have a time limit on turns, don't get me wrong. If you've seen me run D&D, you know that I'll just count down from 10 if somebody's taking too long. So I do enforce pretty strict time limits. However, I'm also not playing with anyone with that kind of disability. If you're gonna have a group this big, you still need to worry about those accommodations. And obviously that person is choosing to be here, but yeah, that last bit wasn't ideal. I'm glad you guys had fun, but let's not try anything like this with a group at this size. Maybe mirror the session so that everyone can do the boss fight in 2 separate groups. My group had been playing on a fold-out table, but someone dive-bombed it in a beer pong game, and now I need something new, preferably something portable and sturdy. Thank God for Tabletop Table. This week's videos are sponsored by Tabletop Table, your dream gaming table that you just don't have yet. I got sent this incredible fully wooden gaming table from this brand, and I gotta say, I was thoroughly impressed with it. It has an ingenious magnet system that allows me to add accessories. It is incredibly portable. I mean, seriously, the whole thing fits in a bag I can sling over my arm. And it is ridiculously pretty. I mean, it's probably the nicest piece of furniture that I have in my house, which, that's saying something. I might like it more than my Lego collection, but it's a close competition. The best part is, the pricing is pretty flexible. If you're looking for something less expensive, you can grab the Hex Light table, which is a lightweight, amazing alternative that will be accessible to almost any TTRPG player. If you guys are interested, you can head down into the description down below or to the pinned comment where you can pick up your brand new gaming table. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Thank you so much to Tabletop Table for sponsoring this week's videos. And without further ado, I'm going to turn back to Anime Rat so we can get back to the video. I, 29 male, have been into D&D properly for about 12 years now, having started with a single Session 0 of 4th edition. Probably best, my only 4th edition experience is the Session 0 from what I hear. How dare you, sir? That's right. I am now a 4th edition defender. 4th edition, get behind me, okay? I'll protect you. I have ran a multi-year campaign as a DM along with several other story adventures. My wife, 29 female, has always been into the idea of Dungeons & Dragons, but never really interested in my games, instead choosing to find her own through a fandom Twitter account that she had a rapport with. They invited her to their D&D campaign during the height of the pandemic, along with a very interesting one-on-one D&D roleplay thing. Anyhow, the group consisted of Polly, female, who ran the Twitter account and was the co-GM, and several DMPCs. Her boyfriend, Ryan, male, who was the actual DM, Kai, non-binary, who played a Tabaxi rogue, Willow, female, who was a gnome paladin, Kinsey, non-binary, who played a kobold druid, and my wife, Quinn, who played a Firbolg fighter. The campaign they played in was Curse of Strahd, not to be confused with the infamous Curse of Strahd. These Chinese knockoffs, man. They're getting out of hand. They all played every week on Saturday. I thought it was going great since Quinn was excited and talked to her friends kind of regularly, and it was just a really good outlet during lockdown, but then I started noticing some things. Every Saturday, my wife would get excited for her game, talk to the group at the start, then almost total silence for 4 hours. I run my own campaign, so I thought that was kind of odd. I asked her how things were going, and she said she was pretty down about how the game was going, but didn't really have anything to compare to since it was her first ever time playing Dungeons & Dragons. Well, a couple weeks went by, and Quinn was getting more and more discouraged about playing. She thought she wasn't very good, and told me D&D just might not be for her, which is fine, it isn't for everyone, but she loved her character, and this was the only real socialization we had apart from each other, so I thought it was a big deal. At this point, I've been invited to their Discord server, and definitely got the impression that Polly did not like me, which, like, whatever. We don't have to get along with everyone's friends. Everyone else was pretty nice and inviting, though. So much so that I was invited to make a character and play. I am a happy forever DM, but I was up to be a player. So I made an undead orc paladin, which are 3 of my favorite words. I love you. Tell your wife you better watch out. I was told I would need to sit in for 1 session before my character joined, which seemed pretty normal. During the session, my wife and I got sat next to each other, and I joined the Discord call and the Roll20 group. Everything seemed normal, and I joked with everyone at the start, but once session started, things got weird. Polly's DMPC, some kid named Jackson, who was super powerful and can kill you by snapping his fingers. It was also Stroud's son. Anyway, he talked about where they were going, what they needed to do, daddy issues with all the players, while Ryan occasionally chimed in to get things moving as best he could. Sorry, the DMPC is awful and all that, but, Strahd von Zarovich named his offspring Jackson. Polly, as Jackson, would then spend the next hour or so just talking to Kai's character as they traveled. Quinn did not say a word for a whole hour to anyone, neither did Kinsey or Willow, hardly. Eventually, an encounter happened over a frozen lake, and Quinn was finally able to talk. Once every 30 minutes when it was her turn, with the characters being quickly followed by Jackson talking to a fortune teller lady, also played by Polly, and Kai's character. Fortune teller lady was only talking to those two, though, and that took to the end of the session. After things finished up, I asked Quinn if that's how things normally went, and she said, yep, and explained how she wasn't really upset, she likes her character, but her character never really gets to do anything, since it's mainly just Quinn playing with Kai. I felt really bad for her and told her I would try to have my character talk to hers to try and open things up a little. I wasn't planning on ignoring anyone, just maybe giving Quinn, Willow, and Kinsey some kind of opportunity to share how their characters felt about the journey, and play my character like getting to know everyone. I'm new, so it doesn't seem crazy for my character to ask about the rest of the party. The next session rolled around, and my character is going to get introduced while they were making camp. I get introduced through some amnesia thing and just start following the party. I had my orc talk to Willow about their shared god, who my character was actually faking knowing anything about, getting caught in lie after lie. We laughed about it. It was a good interaction. I also tried to get everyone to talk a little, including Quinn's character, and things were going well. Ryan had a wizard NPC that was fun to bounce dialogue off of, and then there was Polly's Jackson NPC. Immediately hostile, threatening to kill my character. Hey guys, what are you guys doing? Oh, hey! Oh, they're just showing us some new icebreaker stuff. Yeah, it's been really fun, just, getting to know everyone. Like, I'm trying to get to know the group, interact with people. It's pretty cool. Like, you got a great group here. You're getting to know everybody? Yeah, is that a Oh, God. Prepare to die! I know we're making fun of this guy, but, this was me in university. Like, who wants to get to know people, man? I get it. Honestly, I empathize. I tried to laugh it off, but then he just dimension doored me out of nowhere and brought me back with a "I won't be nice next time" type of line, which... Okay, you can't dimension door an unwilling creature! That's against the rules! We continued the session. I tried talking here and there, getting along with pretty much everyone. I thought things were going well. Unlike the last session, everyone was really involved and laughing, apart from Polly. We tried to get to a church, though, and things changed. Apparently this church was for Willow's and, mine, I guess, god. Then the god started talking to Willow and Kai. I didn't think much of being excluded since my character was meant to be a pretty crappy paladin, but this conversation went on for 45 minutes, with just Polly talking to Willow and mainly Kai as Willow's god. I heard something I wanted to ask about, so I did, then got told, "You're not there, only Willow and Kai are," by Polly. That was definitely not clear since we all entered the church together, and this conversation just kind of emerged from the ether. Damn, bro realized he's a straight up side character. No. So I then asked if there is any way to join this conversation. Since I am a paladin for this god, I was half joking, not expecting it to work, but maybe give some kind of opportunity to break up this frickin' monologuing that only half the party could even partake in. I was quickly told no by Polly, and that was that. The conversation continued for probably another hour, and then we were finally able to move on. The rest of the session wasn't that eventful, with a quick combat occurring before wrapping things up with Polly, having a moment with Jackson, being contacted by Stroud, who is also played by Polly. And then they talked about Jackson not wanting to betray Kai and the others, I guess, and then that was it. I was nice, pretending things were great, but saying it wasn't really something I do regularly. I left after a good hour of post-session talk, not saying much, as it was mainly just Polly and Kai chatting, Ryan reminding Polly of things she had to do, and Willow and Kenzie dipping out really early. To be honest, I would have left earlier, but there wasn't really much of a chance to say anything at all. Quinn told me she wanted to go, so I made something up that we needed to go do. Afterwards, Quinn and I talked about things. She told me she didn't really want to play with them anymore, since she didn't really get to play outside of combat because she got the impression Polly really didn't like me. I supported her, and however she decided to leave, that was that. She didn't hate D&D and has played quite a few games I've run, thinking I'm the best DM ever, so things turned out pretty great. TLDR, co-DM picks her favorite and basically ignores the other players for 4 hours a week. Look, at first I was thinking, how could you guys just stay silent throughout all of this? But if I'm being honest, I feel like my friends can do that too. I'm good at talking, and in conversations I can be pretty assertive. If I don't conscientiously give room for people to stop me, I can bulldoze people, and that's bad. It's easy to forget that not everyone is as assertive as you when talking, and some people are gonna wait respectfully for that opening. When the ball's not in my court and someone else is talking, I can be that person who's just waiting silently for an opening. So hearing these people just sitting there for hours, it does make sense. If the DM doesn't make room for the players, the DM is just gonna talk their throats sore. And that's not the point of D&D. It's even crazier that this person isn't even the real DM. She's the co-DM. Wild that the DM would allow this to happen. I just heard another Curse of Strahd horror story in channel and figured I should share mine. It's not a complete failure, but it does involve possibly my favorite setup for any campaign. A dark comic blend of D&D, What We Do in the Shadows, and Martin McDonough's screenplay. I know what two of those things are. At Session 0, my group was making characters and trying to figure out why we were in Barovia to begin with. We settled on a Gloomstalker Ranger, a Twilight Cleric, and a Circle the Land Druid, as well as a Divine Soul Sorcerer, but our characters aren't really that relevant. We decided we were aspiring adventurers looking for our calling and trying to make a difference. In our character's hometown, there were rumors of vampiric activity. True, there weren't any actual murders, mind you, and no one had actually gone missing, but Vile graffiti slogans were being written all over town. Merchants were complaining about petty theft of snack bars and snack foods. Most damning of all, some of the local teens were dressing in all black and loitering in the public square at night. We decided we were the ones to solve this affront. We researched stories of vampires and their abilities, getting as much holy water as we could from the local church before the local clergy kicked us out, and generally prepared ourselves with weapons and all the wooden stakes we could carry. We tracked the vampire, the legendary, dreaded Count Kyle. God, y'all are killing me with the names today, alright? Yeah, he lived in his lair in his parents' basement. The wretch had turned his parents into thralls that tried to cover for him, but they were quickly dealt with. We made our way into the basement, where we had 3 other vampires with them. They were dressed in black, their faces white with powder and black makeup on their lips and around their eyes. Hey, you know, I'm into that. I think it's pretty cool. Kyle looked too young to be a vampire human, about 15 years old, with the D&D equivalent of Hot Topic clothes. We realized that they all looked about 15 or so in general. This evil spawn of hell was targeting adolescents. As we approached him, drawing our weapons and preparing our spells, his damn pure thralls tried to block our way. They must have been newly turned, because the closest one dropped easily with a stake to the heart, and the other 2 turned and fled. We were tempted to give chase, but knew Kyle was our prize, and we would not be distracted. Kyle tried to trick us, of course. "I'm not actually a vampire," he screamed. "I'm just a kid who likes the aesthetic. I'm only 15. I put the graffiti up because this town's boring, and I thought the vampire scare would be fun." His sobs were convincing, almost enough to give us pause. But the devil mixes the truth with lies. We saw through his deception and began our attack on the teenager. "Oh crap, the authorities! We got a bail!"
Ha! Not so fast, heathen! Whoa! Fool. Even if I'm caught today, my revolution is only growing. Our dark movement already has 5 new members. You'll never be able to stop us. So I'm here to stop you.
Really?
With death!
Wait, what?
Yeah, death. I'm gonna kill you. Kill you dead! Super dead. Uber. Dude, I'm like a teenager. Man, I'm like spray painting some signs. Okay, like I feel like it's a little bit of an overreaction. Nice try, Fiend. It is time to meet your doom! I'm a great bringer of justice. Hey, why did my honor score go down? The fuck?
He cowered and begged for mercy, doubling down on his words of trickery and feigned innocence, but we succeeded our wisdom saves and killed the vile beast. Upon completing the deed, slaying the dreaded Count Kyle, we were momentarily struck with how easy it was. There was no fight, none of the vampire's rumored legendary abilities worked on us, and we found ourselves wondering how we were able to defeat the ghastly bloodsucker with such ease. The only answer? We were clearly the finest vampire hunters ever, of course. This was obviously what we were supposed to do. The only thing left to do was to now intentionally go to Barovia and kill the lord of all vampires. You're welcome, world. We'll be back in a jiffy. Sadly, the real curse of Strahd kicked in and we were never able to complete the adventure. I think we made it to the fortune teller before real-life scheduling stepped in and ended the campaign. But it remains one of my favorite Session Zeros and party backstories ever, despite the absurdly dark subject matter. Thank you so much for the good work you do. Hope you enjoyed this bit of dark absurdity. I did, and having a party backstory like this in Session Zero is a lot of fun. I will say, you should still do the normal Session Zero stuff of checking what the group is comfortable with and blah, 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 but I'm assuming you did that. If you didn't, you should still do that. But having a fun story that your party can all connect over, that is a great way to make sure that the group has cohesion right as the story of the campaign starts. A lot of campaigns have that awkward early segment where you're all meeting for the first time and you don't know what to say to each other. But if you have something like this, or even just write it into your backstory, it allows you to have a real roleplay hook and skip all that awkwardness. So this story takes place in my first ever full D&D campaign about 2 years ago. I played plenty of one-shots before, but me and my group were finally ready to start a campaign. The important characters are me, the Shepherd Druid, the Ranger who was my, at the time, best friend. I'll get to that later. And the Cleric, a new player that I'd introduced to D&D. The first half of the campaign was great. Besides the fact that Cleric's player kept misgendering me and my druid, I go by she, they pronouns, my druid is by they, them, and the rest of the table just didn't care. But other than that, perfect.
Yes, other than this blatantly not great thing, everything is going perfectly well. Absolutely. Woo.
My druid and cleric had a great dynamic. They bickered like an old married couple, but they had really strong friendship vibes and pulled off some great, cool team attacks. We had a homebrew team attack rule that I really latched onto, and the rest of the party was really fun to roleplay with. The problem starts when out of game, the cleric started dating. The next time we got together to play D&D, the dynamic was different. They argued with me more than usual, and it wasn't lighthearted. They brought up out-of-game relationship problems never expressed to use against my character. And each time, I said not to bring out-of-game drama to the table, and the rest of the group backed me up. This went on for literal months, Cleric just using our established character dynamic to berate me for out-of-game grievances they never communicated to me about. Eventually, I broke up with them. This wasn't the only reason, they were just a crappy partner in general, but that's not related. After we broke up, Cleric just refused to engage with the game. They came every time and just sat there and glared at me. Bro, just quit. Please just quit. Now, this is where the ranger comes in. Apparently, Cleric was talking to Ranger behind my back about our problems for months. They told Ranger some serious personal issues I'd expressed to them in confidence just to crap talk me. Eventually, this leads to the last time Cleric ever played at that table. The game started as usual. Cleric came in, sat in silence for almost half an hour glaring before, during a big moment for my character, they finally spoke up. Hey, Ranger, wanna do that thing we talked about? Sure, Cleric. I cast Ensnaring Strike on Druid. For context, PvP was allowed. It was just a gray area. If you attacked a party member, you needed a dang good reason. They had no reason. Just shot my character with an ensnaring strike while I was having a big character moment. Cleric immediately afterwards cast Inflict Wounds at 2nd level on my poor little level 4 druid. Alos will murder a D&D character before going to fucking therapy. I was luckily in wild shape at the time, so I survived. But afterwards, Cleric went to this whole villain monologue about how I, out of table, single-handedly ruined their life and how this was somehow payback. The whole table just sat there uncomfortably listening. Ranger looked confused, and I was on the verge of tears. Once this got serious, the DM called the session, and me, Ranger, and Cleric talked about what happened. Ranger started out by saying they had no idea out-of-game stuff was going on and thought that me and Cleric were just planning out some kind of PvP fight. Cleric started screaming at me for ruining their life before Ranger stepped in to calm them down and actually talked. Cleric said that they hated me for breaking up with them. Again, they were just a crappy partner, regularly misgendered me, verbally berated me, and straight up lied to me regularly, but I won't get into all that because it's not relevant. Cleric finished by telling me to off myself. Ranger left after apologizing, and I was left there, thoroughly exhausted by this whole thing. After that incident, the game never started again. It was just too awkward. That table never really talked to each other after the whole thing, and I fell out of touch with my best friend. I don't know what to learn from this. Don't date people you play D&D with. Communicate better in a relationship. I don't know, dude. I'm tired. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. Happy ending, though. I started DMing a game soon after that one ended, which made it all the way to the finale, and me and the group still talk. Currently, just finished the session 1 to the campaign I've been writing for a year now, so I'm super excited for the rest. Yeah, this person is a bad partner. Now, obviously, we could jump into the what is true dimension. Maybe the writer is the real monster and both of them suck or something like that. But look, even if the writer was the worst partner of all time, which I don't believe is the case, I think that the cleric just sucks. But even if that were the case, you can't vent out your problems in a D&D game. A PvP in a TTRPG is not a good way for you to resolve issues. Now, obviously, by that point, they had already broken up, but come on. The best thing to do after a breakup like that is to separate, at least for a while. Reconnecting by killing your ex-partner's character? Bad idea, dude. Bad idea. Hey, you know what this is? It's a wrap. If you watch the whole darn thing, then leave the comment, Art for Love, to let me know that you were loyal to the channel. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out this episode of Critical Failure, where we talked about a cult leader who wanted to be besties with Matt Mercer. It's linked up in the cards. But before you go, please do leave a like on this one, and subscribe to Crispy Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to get access to exclusive homebrew content and an exclusive Discord, you can head down into the description where you will find our Patreon, where you can directly support the channel. In essence, like, comment, subscribe, support. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.